I will say, a lot of the reactions in this show really don't make sense when you consider the fact that these are supposed to be witches that should be intelligent. I mean, could you imagine like a vampire hunter going into Transylvania and seeing a bat and just going, oh, that's probably just a normal bat? What an idiot. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Anderson here, and this is Agatha All Along, Season 1, Episode 4, If I Can't Reach You, Let My Song Teach You. So this one was fine. I think overall the story is progressing pretty smoothly. I will say the fact that we didn't lose any witches after this trial makes me wonder if maybe we're not going to lose all of them. And they even talked about at one point how many witches are supposed to be in the coven at the end of the road. Agatha seems to believe it's only 2, and that does make me think, well, maybe they all will make it. Maybe Sharon was just there to die so that way they could bring Rio into it through, I'm guessing, her dead body. But I think overall this one was fine. A little bit more of a deeper dive into Alice's character and sort of how she's been dealing with life ever since she lost her mother, coming to realize that her mother apparently put a protection spell over her with this song, and that this curse has been following her around her whole life, which is why she's been dealing with all this bad luck. I think it was pretty well put together. There were a couple of issues I do have with it. My first one is the fact that everybody seems to be kind of stupid. And what I mean by that is we know what world they're living in. As the audience, we can look at a lot of this stuff and go, okay, so this is how things work. Well, they're on this road. Clearly, you can't just not do a trial. And yet they still try. You would think after the first one, they would have learned. Alice would not be trying to walk away from the next trial because you can't. It's already been proven that you can't. Also, we saw in the first one that if everybody doesn't participate, the trial's not going to continue on, because as long as Agatha didn't drink that final glass, they would not be able to continue. And yet in this one, Jen, she still tries to not be involved in the band. And I know it's more of a comedic thing to be like, oh, I'm staying in my circle. I'm staying in a circle. Like, it's supposed to be a joke, but at the same time, logically, she knows you have to participate. You can't just sit it out. And then the final thing they're being stupid about is everything to do with Lilia. She keeps having these moments where you could tell she's probably getting a glimpse into the future, and everybody just looks at her like, oh, she's so weird, oh, she's so kooky. She's a divination witch. She's probably getting a glimpse of either what the future is going to be or what the possible future is going to be. And yet we act like, oh, what a kooky little witch. They're smarter than this, right? They know she's a divination witch. Why would they not be sitting there asking the question, hey, what did you see? What was that about? They're not trying to piece it together at all. It's just these little moments where she spouts out some random stuff and the characters just look at her like, well, you're weird. It would be like if they were lost in the woods and one of them had a compass and a map, and suddenly they just blurted out, hey, we need to turn left now. And everybody just looked at them like, what a dumbass. Who's just spouting out random stuff. Pay attention to them. They probably know something that you don't. So that's one of the issues that I have. The other one I would say is everything to do with Rio. First of all, I do want to say I do think Aubrey Plaza is a good actress, but she is guilty of playing sort of the same character every single time, and this is no different. This is basically every character that I've seen her play in Legion, in Parks and Rec. There's another one in there that I'm forgetting right now, but this is the character she plays. And she does play it very, very well. But when you've seen it so many times, you just sort of get not necessarily bored by it, but you feel like you've seen it before. You know what you're going to get when she's in anything. And so it can get a little bit predictable. And everything they're doing with her character as well, it feels pretty standard. Like you could sort of predict where a lot of the season was going to go in the first episode. When you saw that little interaction between her and Agatha, obviously there was a connection there before. Obviously she's going to get involved and try to help Agatha get her powers back. Even the fact that she was trying to kill her, you could probably sense that, well, maybe she might not want to, since there does seem to be that old connection there. And if I had to take a guess on how this story is going to go based on what I've seen before, I would assume they're going to play up this idea that maybe she and Agatha can reconnect, but by the end of it, it's going to end with the two of them fighting. I don't know why that's going to happen. I don't know whether it's going to be maybe she has ideas and plans for what she and Agatha can do together and Agatha will decide not to, or if Agatha's going to do something to hurt her and so then she'll turn on her at the end, or she's just being disingenuous here and she actually doesn't care about the fact that she hurt Agatha in the past. But even with this little scene here at the end, I don't see it changing the fact that it's probably going to come down to the two of them battling it out by the end of this season. But outside of that, I thought everything else was pretty well done. The song was once again really good, even though it was set to obviously a slightly different tempo and I guess with a bit more of an 80s vibe to it. But I think the whole scene was really well done. It was very much set up like kind of a music video in a way, and I liked how they did that. On top of that, the mystery with the teen deepens. We do see whenever he gets stabbed with the piece of glass, Agatha's concern for him does sort of show that she might also suspect that he could be her kid, possibly. So with that in mind, I don't know if that's where that's going to go. It feels too obvious. It feels like they wouldn't be building it up this much that he's going to be her kid if that's what it is. But at the very least, she does think that now, and the little conversation between the two of them, it does show that she's trying to, I think, have that mindset of he could be her kid. So a lot of the mystery and intrigue there, I think, is very well set up and honestly has my attention probably the most out of anything else happening. But overall, I do think this episode is a step up from what we've seen so far, so hopefully they can continue on this upward trajectory, and hopefully they can give me a few more surprises than I'm expecting, because some of this does seem pretty predictable at the moment. But we'll see what happens next. On to the next episode. I'll see you there. Alright, this is so much fun, guys. Episode 5. I did my review of this one, and it was shortly after my laptop did an update. And I thought everything was fine. And then I started to do my review of the 6th episode after I watched that. And I noticed, wait a minute, I'm not seeing any sound coming through my mic. Did it change that during the update? And if so, does that mean I didn't have any sound for my review of the 5th episode? Yep. Yep. That's exactly what happened. So yeah, I did that whole review of the 5th episode and it's gone. No sound. And so now I have to talk about both episodes with the knowledge of what happens in the 6th episode, which I guess is fine, because the 5th episode, quickly recounting some of my thoughts there, some of it was very confusing, and some of it I think got better after watching the 6th episode, because it answered a lot of the questions that I was worried it might not answer. So there was a lot of confusion that I had while doing the review of the 5th episode that has been cleared up. So I guess I can streamline the review a little bit more of episode 5 and talk about my issues that I had, because really the biggest episode I had with episode 5 was the tonal shifts. There were too many moments where I couldn't tell what style it wanted to go for. Was it trying to be a comedy? Was it trying to be a horror? Was it trying to be a horror parody? There was just too many moments where the tone shifted so dramatically that it kind of gave me total whiplash. Like the whole scene where she's pretending to be possessed by Sharon, so goofy and over the top, and it is dark humor if you consider the fact that she's the one that got Sharon killed by bringing her along to all of this, but it's done in such a goofy way that it doesn't really feel like dark humor. It feels more like a kid's version of dark humor. And so I didn't really find it that funny, but then you go from that whole goofy scene and then immediately followed up with all these emotional moments between Agatha and her mom and then everything that happened with Alice. I will say the fact that Alice got killed was disappointing because it does make it feel a lot more predictable. Because I did say in the 3rd episode, to me, it felt like it would be way too predictable if everybody outside of Agatha, Rio, and the teen, who we now know as Billy, it would be way too predictable if they were the only 3 left. If they killed off all these other random witches that they introduced just basically to have for these death scenes to raise the stakes. I just felt that would be way too predictable. And so with Alice getting killed, kind of feels like that's what they're going to do. And I will say at the end of episode 5, I didn't actually think that Jen and Lilia were gone, and yet it feels like they are in the 6th episode. And I'll talk about that a little bit more there. But as far as Alice's death, it feels weird from Agatha, because I don't know if she meant to do that. I don't know if her powers are something she can control, or if it's just as soon as she gets hit with magic, that's what happens. She just absorbs it. And maybe it's something that she doesn't want to have. We don't really have any clarification for that. We only have a couple of hints that maybe she doesn't like it. The fact that she went outside and she looked really, really sad, but that was hardly any time at all before she switched it around and suddenly started talking all cocky and evil-like. Yeah, stuff with Billy was confusing during my episode 5 review. I wasn't really sure what all was going on. The crown, I didn't really pick up on the fact that looks like Wanda's crown. So I had no idea what was going on with him. I kind of suspected maybe Rio had something to do with it because she's still not around. I don't know what's going on with that. Even in episode 6, they don't talk about her at all. She's just not there. Did they just forget about her? Is this just a product of reshoots? Maybe they added Aubrey Plaza to some of these scenes where she wasn't before. And so now this scene doesn't make any sense because she should be there, but she's not. I don't know. It feels weird that she didn't come outside with them, and then they have this whole conversation and they go off on the road and she's nowhere to be seen. Why? Yeah, focusing a little bit more on episode 6 though, I do like the fact that it turns out to be Billy Maximoff, because it's definitely not something that I had predicted or even thought about. And it does make a little bit of sense. It involves some comic book logic. If you think about the fact that the hex, I think is what it was called, as it's closing, I guess Billy's consciousness before it disappears jumps into the body of William Kaplan, who died, And so that's why he was able to take over his body, and now he just exists in this. Sure, whatever. It's a comic book TV show. I can buy that. I can turn off my brain for that leap in logic. But it does add a lot of very interesting elements that honestly I'm kind of sad we don't get to spend more time on. I think that's probably the only disappointment with this story, is it's more interesting than getting one episode. Like having to navigate that whole issue of he's now living this new life, and these parents are now living with this kid who they think is just dealing with amnesia, but actually it's a whole new kid in this body, and he can read their minds too, and that adds to some of the stress because he hears the thoughts that they're having about him. There's so much about this that I find very, very interesting, and it feels like we just sort of had to skip over it because, well, we have to get back to the main story, which is all about Agatha. This is just a quick explanation of who Billy actually is. So while it does sound like a negative, it actually is a positive that they did something so good that I want to see more of it. But moving on and focusing a little bit more on the fact that Jen and Lilia are now gone. First of all, the fact that Lilia is the one that put the sigil on William is interesting. I'm guessing it's something she saw when she did his palm reading. Maybe she saw what happens with him becoming Billy Maximoff, and so that's why she did it. Or maybe she saw what they're currently going through and realized Agatha needed to not know who he was, even though apparently she knew right away, which a little bit of a bullshit line that they threw in there to explain away without actually explaining anything. Oh, you and your mother have the same tell, which is inconvenient for you. How about you just say what the tell is? So that way we actually know that Agatha saw something that clued her into what's going on here, and not just, oh, we needed Agatha to already know, so there was something similar about him to Wanda. You won't know what it is. It's such a cop-out answer. But with Lilia and Jen, though, the fact that they're dead now, first of all, it is odd in a sense of I kind of expected everybody to die outside of Agatha, Rio, and Billy, but I expected it to be a little bit more drawn out, like we lose one every other episode maybe. So to lose all three in one episode, like, it's predictable that all three of them died to me, but it feels even more stupid that you introduced all these characters that have all these different connections. We even see connections to Billy and how he got there, and now they're just all gone. It feels odd. And on top of that, the fact that the two of them got thrown into this bog with Agatha, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, probably not going to die then, because if they died, then Agatha would die. And obviously Agatha's not going to die with 3 episodes or 4 episodes left in her show. So the fact that Agatha's the only one that survives, why? How did she survive that in the other two? Or are the other two actually okay and we're going to see them crawl out of the bog in the next episode? I don't know. It just feels weird that she would survive when they wouldn't. And the only explanation I could think of is maybe that little bit of power she sucked up from Alice last episode was enough to save her. I don't know. But it does feel a little strange to just get rid of the two of them. Especially because we've gotten a little bit of stuff about Jen. We've not really gotten much about Lilia and her backstory yet. And on top of that, we still have not had Lilia's trial. So how are they going to get past it without having their divination witch? But I do think now the ending of the season does feel a lot less predictable to me. There are a couple of different options that they can go with, and I like that feeling. Before, it always felt like it was just going to be Agatha gets her powers back, and then she faces off against Rio at the end of the season for whatever reason. But now, with Billy thrown into the mix, there's a couple of different possibilities. Is he going to try to be a hero in all of this and stop Agatha? Or is he going to do something maybe a little bit darker to try to get his brother back, and Agatha will have to stop him before he does something irreparable? Is Rio going to get involved in all of this, or is she going to be more on the sidelines until Agatha is fully restored? Like there are a few different things that they can do with these characters now, and I like that. So I really hope they don't fumble it at the end, because right now the setup for it is really good, and it's really intriguing. And it's definitely piqued my interest a lot more than anything Marvel I've watched over the past several shows, with Werewolf by Night really being the only exception in that run of shows and movies. Yeah, I think that's about it for these 3 episodes, so let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3? Let me know. We can talk about, discuss, all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Agatha All Along reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on here, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.